Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, it's Sunday, April 25th, 2021. In both the Lynn life and the Jamie body mind, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as the souls are already living by the many search for truth rules, already given to the search for truth community by wiser minds above all of us. And it doesn't matter whether or not the souls are actually living by those rules. We find that by and large they don't, but it's important for the host lives to live by the rules, and for all of us to consider that we've all been given rules by which to live our lives, and that it matters that we try to live our lives by those rules. We should try to keep our promises. For example, when we say something, we think that our bodies are listening to what we say. We would say we know. Whoever is speaking, unclear who it is, but it's somebody who's saying we think, and they seem to not have a body themselves, and so they're positing as a theory. The cells must be listening, because the cells respond as if they know what's been said by the lips, and then they call us to do that thing that we said we would do, and somebody else is saying. So we have a discussion room of higher presences, angelic presences. I'm not sure if there are any godly presences, but I can feel angelic presences who are discussing. They might be discussing the inquiry of whether or not this is actually a black hole.
Oh, interesting, right? That could be that discussion.
That might be what they're discussing. They seem to have a lot of data on the table. That's interesting. Somebody is talking about the lack of upward flow and how that might be a pattern that might occur in a black hole as one is being sucked down. Perhaps the upward flow is being sucked down. It's interesting.
Right?
Want now to reopen a portal to higher vibrations above all of us. They're talking again about keeping our promises, and I think they're talking about the pre-birth promises that all of us make to divinity, to the representatives of divinity that we're engaged with before we're born, and that we promise to do these things when we're alive, whatever it is, and however life is being defined. And then it really matters that we keep our word, or at least really, really give it our all. And our Ra used to say it doesn't really matter if we accomplish the goal. It's okay to die trying to accomplish the goal. Just don't give up. Just keep trying. And that is totally within our control. We can just keep trying. And in this era of unfortunate reality, it can be tempting to want to stop and say, well, this is useless. I might as well just, eat ice cream or something and wait for the end to come, because it's not long, according to climatologists.
That's
and
right.
The IPCC is issuing new reports that now recognize how important methane is, and it's, with our bottom trawling ways, we're releasing methane from the seabed floors. And one of these summers pretty soon, we're going to have an ice-free Arctic. And climatologists seem to think that when that happens, given the other tipping points that have already been crossed, that it's going to rapidly come apart. There's this bit about the stratosphere.
That's what they're talking about.
When the carbon levels get to a certain level and carbon concentrations are to a certain level in the stratosphere, that it will just like a flash over fire, eliminate the stratospheric cloud cover protection, the protection. It might be, for all I know, it's what gives the sky its blue color. The sky is blue rather than looking like deep space because of refraction.
That's right.
Light is bouncing off of something at a certain angle to give us this beautiful blue color. And it's bouncing off of something in the atmosphere. And so climatologists think there's going to come the time when the stratosphere just goes and we lose that cover, and it could happen like very quickly, like instantaneously, might be how we would perceive it.
Right.
And there are climatologists who believe that this will happen around when we have an ice-free Arctic. And that could happen this summer. It could. We don't know. Obviously, we're not climatologists, but we read about it with some interest, some level of interest. We read what the experts say, and they're saying in a year now, this year, next year. And when that happens, some of them say, and when that happens, theories seem to indicate that the rest will happen quickly. So, again, all of this is theoretical because none of us have lived through it this go-round. Although we know that somebody else is talking, the microphone just switched. We know there are many souls on Earth now who have come to Earth from other planets who the dominant life form of that planet also destroyed life on that planet. They're talking about Christ presence, who we used to refer to as the blue tunic guy. He always wore this blue tunic. And we've seen this guy just recently here on Earth, recently being the last maybe 10 years, which doesn't mean he wasn't here before then, but that's when we noticed him. And he seems to be affiliated with Babaji.
That's right.
And maybe is the soul who comes into Babaji and Babaji's reincarnations.
That's right.
Babaji is somebody who reincarnates in the Hindu communities, kind of similar to how the Dalai Lama reincarnates in the Tibetan Buddhist communities.
That's right.
And Babaji has appeared to hundreds of thousands of Hindus at the same time at the Kumbh Mela, which is sometimes called the largest religious gathering of its kind, and it's something like every dozen years or so.
Right.
And people come to the banks of the Ganges and bathe in the sacred waters of the Ganges, which, by the way, is one of the world's most polluted rivers, along with some river in Ohio, like the Cuyahoga, or however it's pronounced. So let's not get all holier than thou, right? Which is funny because the Ganges is a holy river.
That's right.
But like every single continent has these horribly polluted rivers, and ours is no exception. But Babaji has been documented coming and showing himself to hundreds of thousands of followers at the Kumbh Mela repeatedly. It's like Christ coming and people actually recognizing that that's the second coming of Christ.
Yes.
Whereas what happens in Christianity is when Christ comes in, he's faced with this Hobson's choice of saying to people who he is, or not saying to people who he is. And he keeps coming back, and he's come back over and over and over and over and over and over. He just keeps trying, and you got to love it and love the guy who doesn't give up. He just keeps trying and trying and trying. And lately he's been trying in Central America, lately being the past 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 5 to 10 years. And in those horribly anarchic countries that are now basically gang warfare sites.
That's right.
And he keeps coming back there, and he's just body hopping because the bodies wear out or die so quickly, and nobody's recognizing him. And he's even made the trek to the U.S. and shown up at refugee stations and in a body of a Central American man. It's always men. Charlie doesn't go for women because he says the reason is because nobody listens to women, and that would be a waste. And we can follow his reasoning because in our assessment, nobody listens to women. So he shows up in these refugee centers, and nobody recognizes him, and they deport him. The guy who wrote the foreword to our first book, Balbir Mathur, founder of Trees for Life, he wrote a story for the foreword, and it was beautiful. And it's about Christ coming and nobody recognizing him. Lazy Susan switches, and now we're back to Babaji in the Kumbh Mela. And in the Kumbh Mela, they recognize him. He comes and he says, "I am Babaji," and they say, "Yes, you are." You know, all hail. And boy, we say the same to Babaji, is, you know, now we are in the presence of divinity. So this past month, the Hindu gods, so they say, have been running an experiment. So they say, because the Kumbh Mela is being held, and there was discussion upstairs, apparently, among the Hindu gods and goddesses, should they postpone the Kumbh Mela because of COVID, let everybody get vaccinated, maybe hold it next year. And the decision upstairs was, no, we must press forward. And host lives down here in this density seem to have heard they want us to press forward, and they pressed forward and held the Kumbh Mela, which may or may not still be going on. It's possible. And it's not as organized as you might think. It's hundreds of thousands of people going to the Ganges and bathing, and Hinduism has many different sects, just like Christianity does. Exactly. And so, you know, maybe the Baptists are doing one thing and the Catholics are doing another. Like they don't like each other, just like in Christianity. So let's not get nasty about it. But now India is exploding with COVID, and their hospitals are overflowing, and they're begging for oxygen donations from around the world, and they're asking for more vaccines from around the world, and we think we should provide them with the vaccines and the oxygen. We're not saying, oh, they made their bed, let them lie in it. That's not what we're saying.
No.
But upstairs we ask, is this what you guys thought was going to happen? And they're talking about, now the microphone switched again, and they're talking about how in India there was a little bit of harassment of the really large Muslim minority, saying that the Muslims were spreading COVID with their gatherings. And now it's switched, and the Bengalis, the Hindus, are the ones spreading COVID with the Kumbh Mela, which is a very large gathering. Maybe they're just so sad that they thought Babaji maybe could bridge the gap, hold the portal open, and protection could come, maybe. I don't know what they thought.
Right.
But they're
I feel that feeling sad, very sad.
Why are you sad? I thought it would work. They thought it would work, whoever's speaking. I thought it would work. It doesn't work. If that doesn't work, then all these other things might also not work. Now I'm feeling a little grumpy.
A little grumpy.
Yeah. Please, may we have a divine plan based in reality to stop the destruction of Earth at humanity's hands using tools sent in by the spirit world. And may that plan be based in reality, to emphasize the point, and have 6 months of dependable levels of backup, so guardian angels stand a chance of getting their denser charges to do what they're supposed to do. Please. Please. A plan, just a plan. Based in reality, and if the reality doesn't include what's happening in India with COVID rates, it's not based in reality. Just saying. And we know we have no legal standing. We have the legal standing of roaches. We understand that. But we're asking anyway, because our job is to inspire a divine miracle or die trying. Inspire a divine miracle to stop the destruction of Earth at humanity's hands using tools sent in by the spirit world. And so far we're not very inspirational to divine minds, as you can tell.
You know what someone is talking about upstairs?
No.
And it links together a lot of messages that have been coming up. They're talking about the event of the COVID spike through the Kumbh Mela, and they're talking about these host lives live in rural America, and there are a lot of signs that people have put up on their yards that say faith over fear. And there's a lot of discussion about faith over fear and God protecting people from COVID. And then shortly before filming, we were in the farmhouse and there was a noise. and trying to figure out where the noise was coming from. And this host life stood in front of a closed door, trying to figure out if the sound was coming from the other side of the closed door, but did not open the door, which is something that you have to do from this density. Upstairs, it would be so hard for them to reach down and open a door. It's not reasonable to expect. They can do as much as they're able to do from
We've
where
seen
they
them
are.
open doors, but the point is we've got to do our part.
That's the point.
We've seen them open doors. We've seen a door open. We hear it when we're lying in bed at night. Sometimes we go, whoa, what's that sound? We go out and something crazy, the door is open that wasn't open. Something fell off the shelf. They go crashing around all the time. But we've got to do our part.
That's
I'm sorry.
the big message. Well, and that's
Go
good.
ahead.
That's the big message. That was what they were trying to get to, was holding in one hand the concept of let us all go to the Ganges, as we have done every dozen years for literally thousands of years, and the Hindu gods will protect us, and that's reasonable for us to believe based on our experiences. And then to hold in the other hand what it means to stand in front of a closed door, trying to figure out if the sound is coming from the other side of the closed door without opening the closed door with your hand. Does that make sense?
Yes. Sauron used to say you've got to use the tools that are available. If you don't even use the tools you have, why would you expect divinity to provide a miracle for you?
That's what they're talking about.
And in Sufism, they have a saying, trust God but tie your camel to the post.
And that was what they were saying.
Mhm.
Trust God, but tie your camel to the post. Pray, but wear your seatbelt when you drive.
Right. You can have your little St. Christopher on the
That's for
dashboard,
sure.
but wear your seatbelt also. And watch road signs.
And watch road signs.
Drive defensively, etc.
You know what they're also talking about?
What?
Someone in that room where they have all the maps and they're talking about the black hole of corruption
Yeah.
is talking about what was being said at the very start of the session about how the body hears the things that are said out loud, and the cells of the body process the promises we make.
Right.
And they're talking about a healing session a couple days ago at this host life facilitated for a client where the client's story about her life is that she doesn't have enough support, and she talks about it a lot with her friends and with her family. And the cells of her body had heard her saying, I don't have enough support, I don't have enough support, I've got nobody supporting me. And the cells of her body started to hoard whatever resources they could have in a way that the client started to gain weight in the physical body, and parts of the body weren't working the way that they normally work because the cells were saying, you need support, I give it to you.
I can give
I
you
hear
support.
you, I can help, let me help.
Let me help.
And so by repeating that over and over out loud and in her head and in her inner world, she was training her own body to
Get fat.
get fat and not work very well. And now they're kind of zooming out to see the larger manifestation of that pattern in a really, really big interdimensional sense.
And they're talking about resources being hoarded. They were talking about this a couple days ago,
Yeah,
too.
right? This is that
And they were talking
feeling.
about the toilet paper shortage a year ago when
That's what they're talking
the
about.
COVID shutdown began. And there's plenty of toilet paper for everybody, but bizarrely some people bought massive quantities of toilet paper and created an artificial toilet paper shortage. We have enough. When we start to live coherently with what it would actually take to not trigger a climate disaster, each of us for ourselves.
That's what they're talking about.
We don't need a lot. We need food. We usually have enough clothing. Those of us who live in developed countries, we need socks and underwear, things with elastic. But really, the rest of it, let us wear out the clothes we have before we just go buy new ones that are in style, etc. We buy so much. We buy all these trinkets that are unnecessary. And if you were to pretend that you were trying to live at the poverty level, or actually try, like we've actually done it for 6 years, in solidarity with those who have to live that way. And granted, we came into it with a paid-off house, so it isn't quite the same, but it was a house that needed a lot of renovation, and so that would mimic a mortgage payment or rent
that's right,
payment.
Actually.
So we're living in solidarity with those who have no choice, and we found that you could do it. Actually, you have to be vegan and don't shop. Just don't shop, don't do it. You can go to the grocery store and to the hardware store, and that's kind of it. Just don't go anywhere else. Just don't do it. Don't shop online either.
Oh gosh.
Like
right.
obviously, if you make a list, if you need a reciprocating saw, go online and buy a reciprocating saw, which we just did. I discovered that the M12, which is a very nice reciprocating saw, top of the line reciprocating saw, is made such that women's hands are unable to disconnect the battery from the bulk of the machine in order to recharge their battery. It's made for these big, strong men's hands. So, ladies, don't buy an M12 reciprocating saw, although it is really an awesome saw. Just buy a Ryobi. They're made for women. There's your hardware store tip of the day.